Imagine waking up one day, 30 years after your brief and relatively under-the-radar music career came to an end, only to realize you've suddenly got a massive international cult following, all because a stranger uploaded your album to YouTube. Well, that's exactly what happened for the members of Satellite Lovers. Let's talk about it. Hi everyone, welcome back to AC Accidental. My name's Andrew, and this is a channel dedicated to discussing music. Of course, from the perspective of an old millennial geezer. If you enjoy this video, please hit the subscribe button at the end to stay up to date with future content updates and to help me along the illustrious path to 24 subscribers. Today we're going to be shining a light on the band Satellite Lovers, who with a sudden and unlikely twist of luck in June of 2024 went from a relatively unknown 90s band from Japan to darlings of the YouTube algorithm, pushing their album Sons of 1973 to instant cult classic status. What I want to do here is take you on a bit of a journey, my personal journey of how I discovered Satellite Lovers, and how quickly everything changed for the band, and also how quickly some of it also came undone. And to do that, we have to start with patient zero, Almeida. But who is Almeida? That would be YouTube user Almeida3931. I'm referring to them as patient zero because their innocuous yet fateful June 2024 upload of the Satellite Lovers album Sons of 1973 spread like a contagion. The algorithm loved it. How much love are we talking? Almeida only ever uploaded 3 videos, yet they garnered 21,500 subscribers. Let me repeat that. 3 videos, 21,500 subscribers, all stemming from the one album that we're looking at today, Sons of 1973. One important point here, and this will matter a bit later on, Almeida was not related to the band. They're just simply a stranger who uploaded 3 Satellite Lovers albums to YouTube purely because they enjoyed the music and wanted to help others discover something that had been lost to the sands of time. Now, before we get going, and in order for me to explain how I even came across this album in the first place, it's important to acknowledge that everybody has different habits when it comes to YouTube. My partner, for instance, when she signs on, she's got a vast curated collection of videos from topics spanning TV commentary, technology, baking, capitalism, and even The Sims. And it's vast, and she kind of just goes where the wind blows, and I think that's great. Me, on the other hand, I'm there for one of 3 things. Either something around the house is broken, and I'm on there trying to find a video tutorial of how to fix it, and yes, the day that I was able to get the microwave door to close again was one of the best days of my life. Otherwise, I'm there watching basketball or baseball commentary because I'm a big fan of the Toronto teams, go Raptors, go Jays, go Tempo, or I'm also pulling up albums to listen to while I'm sitting at my desk working. With that in mind, fast forward a little bit to mid-August 2024, approximately 2 months after the initial album upload by Almeida. Now, for me, it was a working day. I was signing on to get some music to play while I was working, and I always listen to albums, and I generally know exactly what I'm looking for when I go onto YouTube. But this particular day, something caught my eye on the home screen. This thumbnail stopped me dead in my tracks. And it was not just me. The algorithm launched this album into the stratosphere. There were already 1.5 million views on an album from a band that nobody knew, uploaded from an account that nobody had heard of. Why it stood out? I could go on for ages about this, but the visual provided instant nostalgia. The washed out colors and hue, the classic 90s wear, you've got unbuttoned denim shirts, ripped jeans, cargo pants with a fabric belt, a playful knockoff of the omnipresent Tommy Boy Records streetwear that was really popular back in the 90s. It's got it all. Then, of course, you've got the palm trees lining the waterfront in the back. And while we haven't been to Japan yet, that imagery made me think of the sunny boardwalk pop that you would hear in Venice Beach, Santa Monica, South Beach, and for me particularly, Myrtle Beach, where I used to vacation with my family as a young child. Another thing that caught my eye, the track listing was on the front of the album, and something changed in my brain. I was thinking, why does it have to always be on the back? Who came up with that rule? This felt so fresh and so unique. I'd just never seen something like that before. It really, really pulled me in. It was almost cinematic. It was as if I was looking at a sun-bleached movie poster from a Wes Anderson film. You'll notice we'll pull up this example here of Asteroid City. Look at the color scheme. It's almost identical. And the way that the poster's laid out with all the names across it, of course it's single-sided, so they have to be on the front. But that's how this looked. It looked like an old movie poster, and that was super alluring. The duration here was actually another thing that caught my eye. We're looking at a full album stream, and it's only 29 minutes and 50 seconds. Which is awesome, because if I'm going to click onto something that I don't know, that's a relatively low commitment, and I'm willing to make it. More of what initially caught my eye was the album title, Sons of 1973. Now, in the foreground, we've of course got a woman. So why is it called Sons? I really needed to find out. Lastly, the band name, Satellite Lovers. This instantly made me think of the classic Lou Reed song, Satellite of Love, which I adore. And I've always found the concept of satellites and antennas and satellite dishes incredibly romantic. There's something about transmitters and receivers beaming signals out into the abyss or down from the heavens in the hopes of finding somebody at the other end. And that's exactly what Almeida did. They took a shot in the dark, uploaded their transmission into the abyss, and hoped it would be received. And man, was it ever. Needless to say, I clicked into the video and I wasn't alone. At this point, there were nearly 2 million views. The album kicked off and dropped me directly into this bouncy bass line with fantastic horns, while these serene female vocals sung entirely in Japanese had me bopping around, hoping and wishing, trying to sing along, unsuccessfully of course, up until the chorus kicks in, and here we go, sung in English. You're my best friend, you're my good lover. You're my best friend, you're my good lover, la 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 la, la 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 la. I can sing along to that. Say what you will about the Canadian band Len, and yes, the totality of their catalog isn't that great, but the vibe that Satellite Lovers sets here from the get-go reminded me a lot of Steal My Sunshine by Len. It's just pure sunshine pop, and that song was incredible. I was lying on the grass of Sunday morning of last week. It didn't have the best lyrics, and brother, it didn't need them. It was all about the feeling they created, and you're lying to yourself if you don't think Len's Steal My Sunshine is an iconic pop hit. They captured lightning in a bottle. The next song kicks off with an old Hammond organ sound and this real forward-leaning drum beat. I think it was actually bongos, and it just carries a consistent groove all the way through. And this particular song is sung entirely in Japanese, and it's great. It's got this feeling where I imagine somebody kind of roller skating on a boardwalk, and not roller blading, roller skating, old school roller skates with like giant headphones on, just kind of like feeling their oats, you know, skating backward and just listening to this music. That's the vibe it gives off. The next song rolls in with a slinky and sensual bass line and a bit of laid-back casual drums paired with verses rapped softly in Japanese, with a chorus sung in English. This is a bona fide pop hit. Track 4 opens with more bongos, another slinky, sensual bass line, and some organ. And it feels like driving music, the kind of music you'd play if you're driving down Highway number 1 at sunset. And it's got this lovely, ooh, baby, baby, baby chorus with split English and Japanese lyrics. you'll love it. Track 5 is almost shocking when you hear it because the band exposes themselves as Lynyrd Skynyrd fans, with it blasting into a guitar intro that's essentially the same riff as Sweet Home Alabama. And from there, it morphs into this hip-hop meets sunshine pop rock song with a blissfully sunny chorus. And you forget really quickly that this whole song was built on the foundation of Sweet Home Alabama. Track 6 is by far the most laid-back song on the album, and it's pieced together with really interesting sounds like the opening and pouring of a soda can, a phone's dial tone, and the repeating of "this is fun" over and over again. And it kind of has this Walk on the Wild Side sound. Again, another reference to Lou Reed there, with nearly whisper-soft vocals, and this time it's actually both male and female vocals, and that's the only time it happens across the album. The final track of the album is really short, clocking in at just under 2 minutes, and it's just the band jamming around with this really nice organ-led groove with a backing track of cheering and clapping all the way through. It's kind of like this fun ending to a late night talk show. As you can probably tell, I love this album from the jump. What makes it so special and an instant classic has nothing to do with the lyrics. It's sung almost entirely in Japanese with the occasional bit of English, but I don't speak Japanese, and the vast majority of YouTube users who would have seen this through the algorithm also likely don't speak Japanese. And I noticed that actually in the comments section because it was all English. So why this landed so well and what made it skyrocket on the algorithm was it featured a perfect pairing of audio and visual that created a feeling. They offered up a bygone world of sunny, sensual boardwalk pop hinged on awkward young adult romance and invited us in. And we ate it up. That said, if even the slightest thing was different for the video's visual, like this, or even like this, I'd be willing to bet that it never would have taken off on the algorithm. Here's the kicker though, what I and the millions of people who clicked into the video didn't realize at the time, that last one, that was actually the true album art for Sons of 1973. Imagine that. Through a serendipitous misinterpretation of the album art, Almeida uploaded the rear side of the original CD release, and the rest was history. After that initial listen, I found myself coming back over and over and over again to listen to the album. I had it on repeat, and all I could think of is I wanted to find out as much as I could about this band and this album. And more than that, I wanted to own it, needed to own it on vinyl. What I learned very quickly, the band practically didn't exist. They had no digital presence whatsoever. No Wikipedia page, no socials, no official YouTube channel, just Almeida with this upload. To no one's surprise, I ended up on Reddit, as I often do, and someone there was looking for the same info that I was. And I could tell, based on the likes and the comments, we weren't alone. People wanted to know more. What I was able to find out, and this was the part of my journey where I finally found out who Satellite Lovers were, so I can actually introduce you to the band. Formed in 1994 in Japan with a core trio of Hiroyuki Suzuki on lead guitar, Yutaka Nakano on guitar and bass, and Mika Ikuchi on vocals and keys. The band released 3 albums between 1994 and 1996 before calling it quits. Music, Sons of 1973, and Sons of 1997. One of the few pieces of info that was prevalent across the limited resources that were available is that Satellite Lovers were a shibuya-kei band. Finally, something to go off of. But what's shibuya-kei? According to Wikipedia, shibuya-kei was a subculture and indie movement that started in Tokyo in the late 80s and early 90s that drew on Western influences. It peaked critically and commercially in the mid to late 90s as it crossed over with indie rock, noise pop, down-tempo, electronic dance music, and reggae. Interest in the scene waned as it became mainstream and most of the bands disbanded and moved on. Alright, so what else was I able to find? According to Discogs, which is the largest online marketplace for recorded music, the Sons of 1973 album was only ever released on CD, and it was done so on a small label in Japan called U Records, and they shuttered in the 90s. Let's look at that Discogs listing page for the Sons of 1973 CD, and I'm going to read this just so I don't get these numbers wrong, but 74 people claim they have it, 870 people want it, more than a 10-to-1 ratio of haves to wants. And yes, 870 people doesn't sound a lot, but for anybody watching that's familiar with Discogs, so few people put CDs in their want list that to have 870 wanting an album, and again, a 10-to-1 ratio of haves to wants, that's actually bonkers. Based on the comments on the Discogs page, and we'll post them up here just to review, you can see how Almeida's video was the driving force that was actually sending people to Discogs. There was a legit cult fan base forming, and I was part of it. Sadly for me, Discogs made it clear there was never a vinyl release for Sons of 1973, and mostly because, for the last 30 years, there was no demand. While I technically had my answer at this point, I wasn't really satisfied with it. I wanted to own this on vinyl. One significant piece of info that I stumbled across that really blew this all open for me, though, was that the band's photographer back in the 1990s was named Kyoji Takahashi. Not only was Kyoji the lead singer's partner, but they were still together. That gave me an idea. I figured, even if the band didn't have any online presence, maybe Kyoji did for his photography. Lo and behold, he did. I'm going to link his website in the description down below because I think it's worth checking out. He's got a really great eye for creating a nostalgic feel on everyday subjects through a mastery of hue, tint, and soft focus. What I realized on his website, his studio email was visible. So on September 5th, 2024, just 3 months after Almeida uploaded the Sons of 1973 album to YouTube, I emailed Kyoji. Essentially, my message explained that I'm a big fan of his partner's music and that their album Sons of 1973 had gone supernova on YouTube. It already had nearly 2 million views, 193,000 likes, and I wanted to try any way I could to help out to get this released on vinyl. I also pointed out that due to a lack of online presence, I had no way of getting in touch with the band, so I was hoping he could put me in touch with Mika. I felt pretty good about what I wrote, so I hit send. And then, radio silence. No acknowledgement whatsoever. God damn it. I wasn't ready to give up. I mean, I really loved this album, and I could tell, based off the comments on YouTube, Discogs, and Reddit, there were a ton of other people that would love to own a copy of Sons of 1973 on vinyl, if it were possible. So a month and a half later, now in October, I emailed again. I let Kyoji know the album had increased from 2 million to 2.5 million views and 193 to 240,000 likes in just that 1.5 months since I last contacted him. People around the globe were eating this up, and I was hoping that if there was any way I could assist the band in getting this pressed to vinyl, I was just putting it out there and saying I'm available. And radio silence again. Until on December 3rd, 2024, nearly 3 months after I first reached out to Kyoji, I got a response. He emailed me back. The message was short but very kind, and he let me know that Mika wanted me to reach out to the band's manager, Mayumi, and he gave me the contact info to do so. Incredible, right? I thanked Kyoji and immediately emailed Mayumi with a similar message about the band's unlikely but sudden success on YouTube, pointing out that they now have 3 million views, 275,000 likes, and over 5,000 comments. I mentioned I was very keen on a vinyl release for Sons of 1973, and I was ready to assist any way I could. If I need to reach out to anybody, give me their info, I will do it. The very next morning, I woke up to a reply from Mayumi. She'd heard from the band and other related parties about the growing enthusiasm about the album, particularly with the audience in North America. She put an instant smile on my face when she pointed out that a vinyl release was in discussion and she would have more news in the new year. Mayumi signed off, saying she'd reach back out as soon as there was more info to share. It felt like Christmas coming early. Things were starting to move, and it looked like this was actually going to happen. Shift ahead to late March 2025, well into the new year, and after nearly 4 months of silence. I reached out to Mayumi again to check in to see if there was any news about potential timing for the vinyl release. At the same time, I suggested that it would be beneficial to get official Satellite Lovers social media accounts live to take advantage of the current buzz and start promoting the upcoming release. Toward the end of the email, I mentioned that I had recently put a comment on Almeida's album upload on YouTube, stating that I was in contact with the band's manager and had been advised that a vinyl release was slated for later in 2025. That comment? 2,700 likes. The people had spoken, and there was absolutely an interest in this. Now, some people were calling bullshit on my comment, saying I was making it all up just for attention. And yes, admittedly, a lot of people do that on YouTube and really anywhere online, so it makes sense. But in this case, I was being genuine. With that in mind, to all the non-believers,
I'm not the kind of person to say a told us so, but you know what? A told us so. A fucking told us so.
Fast forward to April 27th, 2025, and I get an email from Mika, the lead singer of Satellite Lovers, and she'd misinterpreted me as the original album uploader, Almeida. Of course, that wasn't me, but I was very, very excited to get her email. She expressed her gratitude for liking their music enough to want to share it with the world, but then went on to mention she'd noticed the Sons of 1973 and Sons of 1997 album uploads had been pulled down. She apologized for the mix-up and mentioned their manager Mayumi was in touch with Sony Japan to try to get the videos revived. Spoiler alert, the videos were never revived, and the very epicenter of the entire resurgence of Satellite Lovers was shut down by Sony Music's legal team. Think of it this way. It's as if there were one room in the entire world where all of the fans of Satellite Lovers came together to listen to music, to talk about the band, and to just rejoice in what they created. And suddenly, that room was bulldozed. Everything that had been building up was now gone. There were still fans, but they had nowhere to congregate. Imagine if that room still existed and the band came in with an official YouTube account and said, "Hey everybody, we love that this is happening. We love you're listening to our music. We're actually going to be releasing a vinyl pressing of this coming up soon. We're doing a CD release, a reissue as well," and actually participated in the environment that this was taking off rather than trying to kill it. And I know I do not blame the band for this. This was not Satellite Lovers making a wrong move. This was Sony. And they didn't understand the impact created by Almeida's album upload and the value of the community that it fostered. All of it gone forever. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. An absolute generational fumble by Sony Music. The only thing still up on Almeida's account to this day is Satellite Lovers' first album, Music, which has just a fraction of spillover interest from the Sons of 1973 crowd. In early May of 2025, Mayumi, the band's manager, reached back out to me to let me know they had finally put up some official Satellite Lovers social media accounts on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and soon to follow Spotify. When that note came through, I was super happy for the band, knowing they finally had an online presence. But at the same time, I was a little bit bummed. It kind of felt like a little bit too little, too late. How do you even let all of those fans know that you're alive if the one place that they all congregated is gone? With this unfortunate reality, I did what little I could to help get the word out. I even tried to reach out to Alameda directly via YouTube to let them know that the band was trying to get the videos reinstated, but to no avail. On June 25th, the band posted about their upcoming CD reissue, which was landing in July. They also confirmed a vinyl reissue for Sons of 1973 and Sons of 1997 were both slotted for December 6th. At this point, though, everything that they'd been posting about these reissues was always paired with this super plain and almost sticky note calendar-like artwork that I was particularly confused about. So I went back to Discogs and I pulled up the original 1996 CD release for the album. And it was at this point, and I did actually tease this earlier in the video, it was at this exact point I realized these weren't placeholders. This was the original artwork that the album was released with back in 1996. That thumbnail that sucked everybody in, that iconic image that's associated with Sons of 1973, that was the backside artwork from the 90s CD release. I had a mini panic attack. The very thing that drew me and all those millions of other YouTube users in was not going to be used as the artwork for the vinyl release. My God. I sat on that realization for about a week, and it wasn't sitting well with me. Not only had the Legal Stooges pulled down the original video that gave new life to this band, but now the band was going to reissue this album without the iconic artwork that this entire new fan base had come to expect. If this was in a store, people would just walk right past and not even recognize it. Shortly thereafter, I reached out to the band through Instagram and explained those very concerns. I even sent them a crude mock-up of how they could flip around this artwork so that they could still satisfy the cult following while paying homage to the original 73 album artwork by putting it on the backside. They got back to me rather quickly, and although I was treading into some uncertain waters there, the reply from them was genuine. They actually tended to agree with my suggestion, and they were going to take it into consideration. 1 week later, I got a follow-up saying they officially decided to flip the artwork. I was so relieved. It was that iconic artwork that brought everyone in, and it was the music that kept us there. But they needed to be paired together. August 20th rolls around and the band posts pre-sale links for their upcoming vinyl reissues through various Japanese retailers. They also mentioned it was going to be available through Light in the Attic in North America. Since they didn't have a pre-sale link up, I reached out to Light in the Attic and waited patiently for their reply. At the same time, I noticed a few things on the band's post that caught my eye. Number one, they'd commented on Instagram saying that they actually changed the track order. And secondly, instead of using the exact iconic artwork that drew everyone into Alameda's original album upload, they removed the track listing from the cover and replaced it with the text Vinyl Edition. I cringed. Instead of being cinematic, it was now like having a t-shirt that said t-shirt on it. Since we had a pretty steady line of communication now for more than 6 months at this point, I reached out to them again with my concerns. I softly suggested, don't fix what's not broken. The band replied fairly quickly and let me know that they had to make a small change in order to better balance out the music across two sides of vinyl. Of course, it was originally on CD and it plays front to back without any stoppages. So I was thinking, yeah, maybe if one of the sides was going to be 12 minutes and the other side was going to be 18 minutes, just the way that the duration of the tracks falls, yeah, I could see that being a bit imbalanced and maybe they would want to shift something from the second side onto the first side just to make it closer to a 50-50 split. That's not what happened though. What they actually did was just take two tracks on side B and flip the order of them. So it wasn't like they took something on side B and moved it to side A or took something from side A, moved it to side B just to keep the durations balanced. They took two songs on the same side and just flipped the order of them. So all they really accomplished was just taking the track listing that everybody was familiar with and changed it. I didn't get it. But alas, they'd already finalized the masters, so that was going to be the final cut for the vinyl release. And when it came to removing the track listing from the front side album artwork and replacing it with the wording vinyl edition, apparently that was Sony's doing. For whatever reason, the label wanted to make sure that anybody holding a giant 12 by 12 piece of media actually knew that it was vinyl. And the track listing getting moved to the back, well, that was apparently done because traditionally it's on the back. Of course it is, but that's not to say that what drew people in, that unique placement of the track listing on the front that made it cinematic and like a movie poster, that's what pulled everybody in, and that's what they lost. This is a perfect example of a giant corporation not understanding what drove something to cult classic status in the first place. They've got no awareness of how intertwined the visual was with the audio on Almeida's original album upload. And by making these changes, they basically just declared out loud, we don't get you, but we like what you hold in your wallet. Now, before we go any further, I want to take a quick second here just to pause and clarify, in case it wasn't clear before, any of these missteps that I'm calling out Sony Japan on, this is entirely my own opinion, not the opinion of satellite lovers. At no point did they express any negative views about the choices made by Sony Japan, and I don't want any of my opinions to blow back on the band. Everyone I've interacted with along the way, from Kyoji to Mayumi and Mika, they've all been extremely kind and acted with professionalism and grace, too. Back to the timeline. September 3rd, 2025, Light in the Attic finally has a pre-sale link up to order a copy of Sons of 1973 on vinyl. What I realized, though, is that the pricing being in USD, combined with the shipping cost to send it from the United States up to me in Canada, was quite exorbitant, and it was actually cheaper to order directly from Asia. So that's exactly what I did. I placed my pre-sale order through one of the links that Satellite Lovers posted. It was through Play Asia, a well-known Hong Kong-based retailer of Asian video games, music, anime, and pop culture. The vinyl pressing was promoted as limited edition, and I was certain there was going to be high demand for this release, and I knew it would sell out, so I placed my order 4 months in advance. From here, I just waited for the shipping notification, which was supposed to kick in around the release date of December 6th. Early December rolls around, and December 6th comes and goes, and I still don't have a shipping notification. I'm getting concerned. On December 12th, about a week after the official vinyl release, and remember, this was a limited edition release, and all of the pre-sale links on all retailers had sold out long before this point, I finally get an email from Play Asia saying that they can't fulfill my order. So hang on, something I pre-ordered 4 months in advance because I knew it was going to be absolutely impossible to get a copy after the release date. Suddenly, there's no copy to ship to me, and I'm being told about this a week after the release. By this point, there was no way to make other arrangements, and some people who actually received a copy, believe it or not, they put it up on eBay and Discogs. They were selling them, and they were listed at $400. I was never going to pay that. I was pissed. What was supposed to be a joyous moment was slowly turning into a bit of a nightmare. I'd been working with the band over the course of the year, trying to see this vinyl come to light and really massage it to a point where it was actually going to be reflective of what the cult audience was looking for. I placed a pre-order 4 months in advance, and I don't even end up with a copy because Play Asia waits until a week after the release to let me know they have no copy to fulfill me. Oh, Lord. Oh, God.
Whooper.
I pre-order 4 months in advance, and I don't even end up with a copy because Play Asia waits until a week after it released to let me know they had nothing to send. At this point, I was effectively grasping at straws. I reached out to Satellite Lovers to let them know what happened with my order, and just on the off chance ask if they had any leads for leftover copies. I pointed out the absurd resale pricing I was seeing in the secondary market on eBay and Discogs, and asked if there was any chance for another pressing in the coming months because there was clearly still enough demand. Unfortunately, they didn't have any leads for leftover copies. However, there was a small glimmer of hope as they mentioned that they were going to discuss with the label in the new year about a potential repress. Count my lucky stars because within a few weeks, a limited edition repress was scheduled for March 25th. And this time, it's going to be on baby blue vinyl, perfectly matching the jacket's artwork. I missed out the first time, and I knew if I missed out again the second time around, I either would never own this, or I would have to pay $400 to get a copy. And I just couldn't let that be my reality. So I immediately pre-ordered the second pressing through CD Japan, a different and trusted retailer in Japan. And of course, it's still got the tracks flipped, and it still says vinyl edition instead of the track listing on the front, but I had to have it. April 16th rolls around, 3 weeks after the March 25th release date for the repress. 20 months after I came across this magnificent long-lost album, I've got it in hand. Learnings. Number 1, the YouTube algorithm is mysterious and important. Number 2, record labels see dollar signs, but don't really see the bigger picture. I got a lot to add to this one. Killing Almeida's album upload, rather than harnessing the community it fostered and letting satellite lovers become a participant in that community, that was a critical error. 3.9 million views, 340,000 likes, thousands of comments, and 21.5 thousand subscribers all gained from uploading 3 long-lost albums. All evaporated. Because of that, satellite lovers were only able to capture 242 Twitter followers, barely over 1,000 followers on Instagram, about 2.2 thousand YouTube subscribers, and approximately 75,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. A far cry from the audience Almeida fostered. The band is not to blame. I repeat, satellite lovers are not to blame. This is entirely a result of Sony Japan looking a gift horse in the mouth and then squashing the little guy. Number 3, cult classics. Don't mess with the secret sauce. There's a reason people love something. To anyone that happens to find themselves in the situation, don't try to change something, try to understand it. Number 4, put yourself out there. Send those transmissions out into the abyss, connect, and find your people. That's what Almeida did when they uploaded Sons in 1973 back in June of 2024. And that's what I'm doing with this channel. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe. Maybe this will be my time to shine on the YouTube algorithm. I'm Andrew. This was AC Accidental. Until next time.